Where do I at? Good morning. It's the morning of the 15th of December, 8:36 a.m. And last night, excuse me. Last night I had my company's the tech side of my company's. I'm a software developer for a bank. We had our year-end um, meeting where everyone comes to one location physically, and then we review what's happened in the year, our victories, what's coming in the future, and all that. And it was great. I'm a little tired this morning from probably the disruption in my daily schedule, right? Because you get into a routine. And so I went to that work outing and then went to this sports bar afterwards, even though I didn't drink or anything. I still ran my 3 miles. And during the meeting last night, the CEO of the company was up on the stage and he had a Q&A. And for those that don't know, I work for a company called First National Bank of Omaha. And it's like the third largest privately owned bank in America. And so it's been in one family for like 166 years, I think it is. And he was posing this Q&A, right? And he's like, I'll take questions. And then I gave him a question. I said, how do you deal with the intricacies of properly stewarding a company that is not only just a company, but it's an entity that you have a familial relationship with, because it's something that goes down through his inheritance, right? That's not exactly how I termed it, but it was more probably complicated than that. It was like one of the moments when you speak in the whole room of like 300 or 500 or maybe more people are watching you and the CEO of the company, and you come out with this huge like question that it's kind of prodding and poking. But I was seriously wondering, because it's something he was handed through his birthright, and coming from a farmer family, I know what it's like to have something in the family that's handed down generation to generation, and it's your responsibility to steward it properly for the next bloodline to carry on. And many people depend on you for it to go right. You know, families and extended families depend on you for it to go right. And he was saying how his answer was amazing because it was genuine, for one. And he was stating how it's an advantage to him, because when he goes to these meetings with other CEOs, he's usually the only CEO from a privately owned company that isn't publicly traded. And that means he has more like skin in the game, right? Like the things that happen to his company are more personal to him. And that sets him up to care more, I also think, right? Like it's not the challenges within the company that he is responsible for. They're not as far away from him, right? It's closer to his heart. And he was talking about how that was an advantage to him, and it was an amazing time. It was an amazing answer too. God is good. And you know, that kind of segues into what I want to talk about today is I know there's a problem today with not knowing your purpose here on this world. I struggled with it for a long time. I never really even searched for it, honestly. I remember back in the day when I was first going into college, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. Well, I know what I wanted to be, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in regards to impacting further ecosystems, I would say, besides just me, right? And that, and I'll come to this later, but I think attaching that view of your life as just living for yourself, it isn't something you can attach to that can bear much weight. Like, that crumbles down and deteriorates pretty quickly. Because when I was in college, I first wanted to be a psychologist, which probably doesn't surprise people that listen to this and then hear my terminology and the things that I read, which I think is a testament to God doesn't waste anything, as stated in the biblical text. And then I switched majors like 4 or 5 times. Then I wanted to do personal training at one time because I had a personal trainer all through high school. I was like the track star of my school. I was always big into lifting weights. And then I switched to nursing. And then I switched to, where else did I switch to? Nursing. I did psychology, nursing, personal training. I think that was it. And then I dropped out. Well, I finished my semester and then I stopped going to college because my grandfather on my mother's side had a plumbing business. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I could take that up, right? Because I was, obviously, what I'm stating here is like I didn't know my purpose at all. So I was like switching majors because nothing really felt right. I didn't feel a huge pull towards anything. Whenever I would start making progress in one thing, there'd be cases where I would look down the road and I would think, it's going to take so long to get there. The challenges and tripwire that I am inevitably going to trip at times during my journey in this foreign landscape, that's going to explode and I'm going to get damaged some way. Like, I can see that through the distance that I have to travel between where I was and where I want to be. And I didn't feel like it was worth it. Like that, maybe it wasn't that I didn't feel it was worth it, but I thought I could just take over a company that my grandpa has. And it wasn't a huge company or anything, but he had clients. He was a plumber. And so, I just internally debated the distance from where I wanted to be, let's say to get a doctorate in psychology. We'll just use that field as an example because it was one of the majors. The distance between where I was and where I wanted to be, that seemed not worth traversing for the end result. When I looked at what my grandfather currently had and in which I could take over, which also ties into what the CEO of my company was saying, when it feels more personal when it's something that's been in the family and that you can carry on, right? And so I had all them internal arguments, and I don't want to say wasted. That would have been a mistake. I used a lot of time. I did not waste any time. I truly believe that. Like, it's even stated in the biblical text that God doesn't, there's stories and iterations of how it shows that God doesn't waste any of your time. He doesn't. He'll use the things that you did in the past in order to bring about what he wants you to do when you step into your calling and purpose. And just outside of religious thinking, I also, I wanted more now rather than wait to get a doctorate in psychology. In that example, I was like, let me go try this. If anything, just go back to school again. But really what the problem was is I was just unhappy and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And as I say that, it's like sometimes you have to stumble through in that sort of manner in order to find who you are, and you can't be afraid of doing that. Like, people get afraid of buying a degree. They get afraid of going to college and expending the financial resources because they're like, what if I don't like it? It's like, okay, let's take that apart. What if you don't go? You just stay where you are. You may have you may not have that debt anymore. You may not have that financial debt, but you will carry around the debt of not having the belief in something beyond yourself and your current circumstances. You will carry around the decision to not step forth into the unknown and to not take a bet on yourself to go do X, Y, and Z, and to not think, hey, even if I spend money on this, this can be used to bring about a greater future, right? So even if people get too scared to invest in themselves, to go to college, take out a student loan, they're like, I don't want to be in debt. And I've seen people do this in my life where they don't go, and then they end up working the same job because time goes by really quick. And then 10 years from now, they're in the same job. Whereas they could have taken out a loan, gone to school, learned something, challenged themselves, and maybe, let's say worst case scenario, they didn't want to do what they spent money to do, but that led them to the thing that they did want to do. And maybe they had to take out another loan. Maybe they had to do even more schooling like I did. But then they come to the place in which God had intended for them from the beginning, or was a part of their journey, and they end up happier than they would have been if they kept the financial debt at a lower quantity and not taking the loans, right? Because you may not increase your financial debt, but you'll definitely increase the debt that you have. There's a weight to not deciding to do something because you're not worth it. That is a debt that you will create. And by extension, you will be idolizing money if you're afraid to spend currency on yourself. And I understand that college, I am of the mind that college has sort of became a joke over the years. It cost probably too much financially. It does cost too much. But it's like there are rituals and traditions that one has to do and partake in, and trials that you have to partake in order to bring about the character that you need, to bear and be in order to do things that are greater than when you started. Going through all that in the act of taking the bet on yourself and then walking that out. Yeah, it may cost like hundreds. Dude, some colleges cost like a ton. But that's just like playing the game. It's just like in the corporate space, you got to play the game. Jocko Willink always says that. That's how he turns it, playing the game. And it's true. Sometimes you have to do certain things that are within the structure that you're in order to bring about what you want to do later on. Now, you can't be deceitful or malevolent, sneaky about it, right? There's characters in the Bible like I got something in my throat. This is ridiculous. There's characters in the Bible like Daniel, for instance, worked for a king that was under a different religion. And, I'm sure he had to do certain things that were of standard when he started to work for this dude. And it also shows that he did take a stand for some things that were against his own beliefs. And God honored that and brought that to fruition. But there's still things that people have to do in order to get to where they want to go, right? Like God can use you no matter where you are. So I think taking a loan for college to get the degree that you need in order to get the job that you want to do, it's just part of the process. And so that brings us to our text, because part of taking a gamble to do something that you want to do is part of the process of finding your purpose, because you have to believe that you are worth at least investigating, or at least going through the process of the investigation of who you are and why are you here. Today, it's really hard for people. Because people are more lonely today than they've ever been, ever. The dating market is difficult, and this is talking as a single 34-year-old who is probably, well, I am more driven than the average person, I would state, probably to a fault, which is something I'll talk about at the end of the stream, I suppose. There's something I've came to in my life personally. It does tie into this, so I'll talk about it. It's hard nowadays because people feel more lonely than ever. And this is expressed through the forecasted population decline, because we're having children at a lesser rate than any other time previously. Relationships aren't happening as much. We're in a time wherein we like to idolize ourselves, and the messaging is, I am important, which is true, but the way it's carried out is, it has a cancerous effect in the long run. It's not the same as, well, God states in the Bible, he's like, whoever wants to be first must come last. Whoever's last is first, and whoever's first is last. And when it comes to finding your purpose, it's like, you should strive to affect the things around you and to grow a relationship with places that you're in, people, obviously. And it's not just all about you. It's not. We're in the age of like identity politics, and I'm not like one of those people where I look at that and I'm like, this is so stupid, which it doesn't matter if I think it's stupid or not. Well, maybe it does, but when I see things like that, I'm like, people are adopting that because of a certain way that they feel. Why are they doing this? Right? Like, that's what I always think. Why is that person doing that? They must, something has happened along their journey that brought them to this place where they think, hey, if I do this, if I worship this ideology, if I idolize this, it's like if I enact this behavior, it will bring about a greater future for me. It will bring purpose to my life. When they can get lost, people are clawing and scratching to find their purpose in this world at a rate where they will cling on to anything that initially feels good, whether the acting out of it is stepping on the backs of others or not. And I know, just in my past, when I was like going to college and trying to figure out what I want to do, like the act of going and being a plumber for a while, which is a great job. I really respect people that do manual labor and things like that. It's a different sort of work. And I know as I was doing it, I would work with people that get up every day early in the morning usually. And um, it wasn't a commercial plumbing type job. It was the type of job where you go to people's homes. I can't remember the term for that right now. Uh, and commercial plumbing is for like companies and whatnot, if my memory serves me correctly. But as I was doing that, I the exposure to that sort of work, me stepping that out taught me that it wasn't for me. And it wasn't like I couldn't have been good at it. I could have. I could have been great at it. I could have had a whole business that I took myself and then grew it. Like I could have. But it wasn't challenging me mentally enough. Therefore I stopped. I was like, this isn't the type of problem solving that I enjoy doing, right? And that's when I pulled out and got into school for software development for programming, which is how I got the job I had now, which is how I got a job in programming, which then brought me to the job that I have now. Well, it actually led me to taking that leap of faith, quitting the job that I had at a college to get the job now, which I had the year-end meeting of that I first spoke on in the beginning of this stream. And all these things, there were times when I was like crying and I was like, dude, I'm such an idiot, man. I've changed my majors like 50 times. There'd be times like that. There are also times where people that use their money on me to help me, like my parents, for instance, where I would feel guilty of that because I felt like a waste of money, of their resources. I look back now at what my parents did for me, and I'm so grateful. I'm beyond grateful. And I was a spoiled kid growing up. And there'd be times where that realization would come into my head. And I'd be like, man, they're spending their hard-earned money on me, and I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. Or when I know the world idolizes money, but time is the biggest resource that people usually have, right? And so you can start thinking this person's spending time on me, and I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. And that can make you feel guilty. And I say all of that to say everything that I did to bring me to where I am now was worth it. And the debt that I had to accrue to get here was worth it. And I don't just mean financial debt. I mean the debt, my emotional debt that I accrued, the damage that I took, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, everything was worth it to get to where I am now. It was worth it. And it's not like everything's just hunky-dory now. Like it's all just roses and sweet wine. It's not. There's times where I like cry, just like 2 days ago, I was in the office and I was really I spoke on this yesterday where I was really having a challenging day because like I have this constant ringing in my ears. I can hear it right now because I went and competed in martial arts and got a concussion. And I have these post-concussion symptoms. And I know God has it set up that way because right now I'm in the interim between the wilderness and the promised land. And it's like having this constant ringing in my ears. I can either choose to listen and believe into what God's told me about me, or I can hear the ringing in my ears and listen to the mistakes that I've made, or things that weren't even mistakes, but I could perceive them as mistakes now and look at them as a debt that I've accrued that wasn't worth the cost. And everyone, like I was saying, everyone's so lonely today that they'll just cling on to anything that makes them feel good initially. Which there is. You should feel good about things when you start to do them. but there's also something said about jumping in something that doesn't feel good with the belief that the end result is going to be far greater beyond your understanding. And so it's been 25 minutes. I haven't read a single thing. So I'll start reading here. It's Galatians chapter 4. And like the second part of my title in this YouTube video is Born of Promise. And I'm starting in Galatians chapter 4, verse 21. It's this letter that Paul, who was a Pharisee, is writing to a church that is enacting in behaviors in which they are idolizing the law over their own faith, and they're trying to finish in the flesh what God started in the spirit. And God represents something that is beyond themselves, right? He is the top of the pinnacle of the pyramid. He's the top of the pyramid. He's the top of everything. He's beyond reason, right? And so if you start having more faith in the laws and the rituals and the standards in which you enact that you believe will bring about a better future, then you start having faith in those things rather than faith in faith itself and God. And so we'll start, and he sees that in that church that he planted. This is a letter to a church that he planted because he used to be a Pharisee, and he used to be one that would rely on the law that was of the Old Testament, the Torah. So start at verse 21. Tell me, you who want to be under the law, are you not aware of what the law says? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the slave woman and the other by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born in the ordinary way, but his son by the free woman was born as the result of a promise. These things may be taken figuratively, for the woman represent two covenants. One covenant is from Mount Sinai and bears children who are to be slaves. This is Hagar. Now Hagar stands for Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present city of Jerusalem because she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem that is above is free, and she is our mother, for it is written, Be glad, O barren woman, who bears no children. Break forth and cry aloud, you who have no labor pains, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband. Now you brothers, like Isaac, are children of promise. At that time the son born in the ordinary way persecuted the son born by the power of the Spirit. It is the same now, but what does the scripture say? Get rid of the slave woman and her son, for the slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with the free woman's son. Therefore, brothers, we are not children of the slave woman, but of the free woman. And what Paul is referring to here is a story that happened in the Old Testament of Abraham, who is stated his title that gets expressed a lot. He was stated as a man of great faith, the father of faith. And Abraham was old. I can't remember how exactly old he was. Let me look that up. He was, him and his wife were old. Abraham and wife age. So Abraham was 100 years old, and Abraham's wife was 86 years old, and he wanted a son. God promised him a son, and he had a slave woman whom he had a son with before the son of God's promise to him. God promised him, hey, I'll give you a son, which you are going to be the father of a nation. And so Abraham got impatient, and he had a son with his slave woman. And that's what it's speaking to there, is the son of the slave woman. It says, get rid of, it says basically, the son of the slave woman is not the son of promise. Abraham got impatient and started enacting things before the right proper time because he started looking at his current circumstance and being like, is this ever going to happen? And so he went and impregnated a slave woman to have a son. And then at 100 years old, God followed through on his promise and gave him a son with his wife, who was 86 at the time. She was barren, which is a blessing and a divine blessing and miracle. And so that brought about issues wherein the son that was born of the world and the son born of the promise had contention. And it shows that in the Bible that if we would just believe in the promise that God's given us, well, we feel the Holy Spirit speak to us, we can rely on that because it is beyond our understanding. And we have to know that it is beyond our understanding. There's so many things you can get caught up in this world. So many things. If you're looking for a reason to be sad, if you're looking for a reason to not step out into the unknown and to endure the hardships of being happy, you'll find an excuse to not do it. And you'll find people that will also encourage you to not do it, whether through their verbiage and communication or actions. And what I love about Paul stating to the church, he uses that exemplification, that story of Abraham, who received the promise that God gave him initially, even after he went through and had a son with a slave woman, even after he messed up, right? That's amazing to think about, that he is touted as the man of faith in the Bible, yet he had a son with his slave woman wife because he got impatient on God's word, which tells you that even the man with the greatest faith in the Bible, even he wasn't perfect in his faith. That's crazy. And so God looks over mistakes. Nothing you do is too great for him to readjust and to use for the future. And Paul, when he's stating this to the church that he planted, using this story, he's like, hey, you are children of promise. You are children of promise. We see through the story of Abraham that the son that was born of the earth by earthly means, right? Because a woman at 86 years old shouldn't be able to shouldn't be able to have a child. And a man at 100 years old, his seed should not be fertile. And so he's telling the church, he's like, hey, you are like the son of promise. Your faith, the resource that brought about that son of promise for Abraham, that is the faith that you should also be living out the world with and using and utilizing. You should be looking at that as your main resource, and it is outside your understanding. Whereas the son that was born of the earth, he was brought about by things that people understand, and makes me wonder. I don't know what age Abraham was when the son of the earth was born, but Abraham age when Isaac, he was 100. Ishmael was the one that was born of the earth. He was 86 years old then. Isaac, he was 100. So this had been 14 years, right? And okay, good. I'm glad I got that right then. Now I'm correcting it now. So he 14 years is a long time. God brought about that promise after he thought it would be coming to pass, which also is a testament of you should rely on your faith and things outside your resource, and God being the divine pinnacle of everything, that the provider of everything, the good, the great and sovereign Lord that can change everything as you perceive it. And you should not fall into the trap, just like the Galatians were starting to do, wherein you start worshiping and idolizing the rituals in which you partake, which are of the earth. And you can, by extension, state that in a manner which is expressed as, hey, I am worshiping things that I'm seeing. I am worshiping things that I understand, because it's been a long time since I heard or felt that feeling of, hey, I should do this thing that seems impossible. And like I was stating in the beginning of the episode, that or stream, that you can start looking at how far down the path it is from your end goal. You can look at how far down the path it is from where you are now to your end goal, and think that those tripwires you are inevitably going to trip in the jungle, like here in a war in Vietnam. You will get damaged along the way. There will be hardships. There will be challenges. You can start to think that it's not worth it for this thing that is of the earth that you see right in front of your face. And you see that it will give you gratification now, and it will also give you a manifestation of something in which you can attach your purpose to. And it may not be as good and as crazy and as impossible as your first dream was, but it will at least give you the semblance of comfort of having attached your identity and purpose to something now. And that's a really enticing offer. That's why people get caught up in joining these groups, joining groups that are giving a message to the world that they may not be entirely about when they first join, but people are so lonely. It's like, I want to be a part of something. And in their defense, they are being a part of something that is greater than themselves. But if you're disregarding the thing that was first spoken to you or that you felt out of fear, that is not the right choice. Finding your purpose in life is hard. It's impossible. It's impossibly hard, but it's not impossible. Let me correct myself. It's not impossible. And it's a journey in which having a belief that is outside of yourself is a positive proponent to have, because you're going to have hardships. You're going to get your feelings hurt. You're going to encounter things that aren't fair. And when I was going through college and, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my whole entire life, it was like, man, how many times have I got to change my majors? Like, I don't know, what was I, 27 when I started programming? When I started that field in college to learn it, just start learning it. But I look now, it's like, I sure as hell am glad I didn't do any of the others. I think being a psychologist would have been really fun. And I have debated whether being a psychologist, psychiatrist, if that would have been my actual calling. In the past, I've debated that. But now I know that, as a programmer, man, I have the freedom of my schedule. I'm in a team now. God's placed me in a team that has total faith in me and confidence in me and my intellect. And people listen to me at my work. Like, my superiors listen to me. Not just from a place of just hearing me out because they're above me, but from a place of like learning from me. And that's amazing because you can walk into a lot of groups and places where your superiors won't ever stop to learn from you. They'll just be at a position where they are just trying to teach you and lead you. And that's not proper. I do not see how that is more advantageous for the leader at all. At all. You should be learning from the people you're trying to lead. It should be the manifestation of something greater between the differences of you, between the differences in both of you, right? Because there's going to be differences. And that's what this whole stream is about, really, is I don't want to have something where I'm just like teaching people. I'll be telling stories about myself and talking about things that I'm reading now. And I hope I get people in here that disagree with me vehemently. Because, I know that conversationally that is a hardship that you have to endure sometimes in order to bring about a greater understanding of the world. Because if someone says something that's in disagreement with what you believe, and it could be tethered to something really deep in you that you look at as part of your identity. Like, this is who I am, man. If you don't agree with this, you don't agree with my existence. It's like, that's hard to overcome. That's hard to overcome. That's hard to bow down to and just be like, no, it's okay. It's fine that they don't agree. A lot of people can't get over that. You should, though. You should be fine with people disagreeing with you, because that is how you bring about a greater understanding together. And that's what I want to do with this stream, because there's a lot of people just like giving lessons and just speaking, right? It's boring to me. I mean, it's not boring, but I've seen it so much. It's like I'm trying to do something that I don't know if anyone else is really doing it. I have no idea. But, I read the word every day. And that is because I do believe in the Bible to be true, that there is a God and that there is a heaven. And speaking of folks disagreeing, and hi, Charisse. Hey, I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday as well. And so, yeah, it's good when you disagree with people. It's okay to disagree. Man, something that kind of throws people for a loop with me is I'll tell people I'll think about that, and I'll go away and think about it for like weeks. And I'll literally be thinking about it. Like, it'll be in my reoccurring to-do list. I have a to-do list app, and I'll just put something for like daily. So every single day I'll have this like thing in my to-do list. Think about this, right? That someone told me, because I know that I have a resistance to things sometimes, which you should. You should believe and be passionate about the things you believe in. But you should also be malleable in the sense where it may be possible that my current understanding is wrong and there's better. It's possible that I could get to a greater understanding, right? And what I was going to say in the beginning, thank you, God, is when I started going down this rabbit hole, is when I see people that disagree with me, there's a reason that they've come to that, right? And the reason is because they have experiences on this earth that have brought them to that place mentally or emotionally, however it is. And so a lot of the times it's because they've experienced things that I personally haven't. And even if it's things that are similar to what I've experienced, their psychological makeup is different than mine. Therefore, the things that they experienced, it's going to move the cogs in the machine of their mind a little bit differently than mine, right? The calibration is going to be a little different, right? And so there's an advantage to looking at that and being like, hey, you have differences to me. What brought you to that? What brought you to that place? There's a reason, right? So I look at people that disagree with me, and it's like, this is a great moment for us to bring about something greater for both of us. And some people I'll just be honest, some people that disagree with me, they have no intention on ever bringing about something greater than their current understanding, which is fine. It doesn't matter. I believe conversationally, it is still to your advantage to enter in conversations with people that vehemently disagree with you from a standpoint of what can I gather from this? Honestly, I enter conversations with the perspective of what do you have for me here, God? Because that answers a lot of questions that people have missteps about when it comes to conversations. It deletes the problem of, I think my time's too valuable for this person. I think that this person doesn't have time for me. I think that I know more than this person. I can't learn anything from this person. When I go into a conversation with the perspective of, what do you have for me, God? That is me coming at it from a posture of servitude, bowing down to things that are outside of my understanding. And it is me enacting faith and literally just talking to somebody. And in the same manner, I think you should go about taking the steps in life with that same sort of mindset. Now, you can't go about doing things wherein you disregard the things happening around you, because when you believe in something that is greater than yourself, you know that a divine power can use things of the earth to speak to you, right? Like the creator created this entire universe. Therefore, he can use the things in it. So you can't just like walk straight ahead and just figure you're going to walk through all the brick walls without getting any like rubble and dust on you. You'll still feel it. But just starting out from the position of, hey, this will be better for me experiencing this, is great. And that kind of, there are some people where you should cut off, I guess I've heard from others. And that's interesting to me, because some people are toxic to you. I've been thinking about that idea for a little bit now. And, I don't know how I feel about it. I have, obviously, God's placed certain digital mentors in my life, and they don't all say the same thing. And Charisse, hang on. I call it trying to understand a different philosophy of thought. It helps me to understand people and to either show compassion or to learn something new. Everybody is not for everyone. That's true. Everyone is not for everyone. You're right. And you have to be okay with being everybody's not for everyone. One of my little digital mentors says that you should sometimes you should state that there's a line in the sand and like, hey, I can't communicate with you anymore. And then I have another digital mentor that says that he never does that. He never states that. He just kind of, the relationship continues, but they just kind of drift apart, which there are some people that have a problem wherein they'll just try to get a hold of you over and over and over and over, and you've already established that they are not good for you. And so maybe you have to tell them something. But I don't know. I've been thinking about that for a while now. And when people just drift apart organically, it just happens in life as you get older, like think of yourself in your 20s versus your 30s versus when you were 12. You hung out with certain people and you partake in activities that bring in new people or hobbies or whatever. or ideologies or whatever you're doing, and you just start expending time with other people, and you just kind of drift apart organically. I think that's one of the ways that one of my digital mentors, I say, would that's how he does it. And then the other one states there's times when you need to draw that line in the sand. And I fall more on the side of just organically drifting apart because I just think it's more advantageous to both people. Because if I look at it, what if the line I was drawing in the sand, what if I'm wrong? Right? What if I'm wrong? Because obviously during this time I would be in prayer. And it's just like finding your purpose in life. It's like when you draw a line in the sand, so to speak. And let's say I drop out of college and go do a career. Like there's repercussions to that. And I know that God can fix anything. But sometimes you throw more things in your own way by your own power than you really needed to, just by drawing a line in the sand. Whereas if you kind of just bow down to, if you just relinquish your understanding and kind of let God take the wheel, so to speak, it becomes easier, I think. And I do that in relationships too. I don't think I've ever told someone that I can't be friends with them anymore. I don't know if I have or not. I'm trying to think, even when I was younger. I don't know. Maybe I'm just forgetting. I have no idea. But I just don't really believe in that. I don't really believe in that. And I do believe that you should stand for what you believe, though, right? And you have to do that with the purpose in life. You have to be able to sweat and bleed for what you want, because it's going to happen. There's going to be things in your way. There's going to be obstacles. And look at Jesus, who was like the physical representation of a perfect interfacing with this world in the Bible. It's like that's the model. That's the archetype. And it's like he went through a lot to fulfill his purpose. Right? He went through a lot. And you can also get caught up in enslaving yourself to unneeded pain just from the belief that you have to go through a lot to get to where you want to go. And you can forget to, on your way to getting to the end goal that you have, you can forget to enjoy the now, which that's what I was going to say at the beginning when I was starting this episode. We're almost running to an hour. This is like the longest ever, but something I've come to, and I'll end on this, I think, is in my purpose in life. I have went from being an individual who was undisciplined, didn't have much belief in myself, to a person that was extremely disciplined, having extreme faith in a power outside of myself, and believing in a purpose that is attached to something that is outside of myself, that is for the bettering of the world, and knowing that my actions and my bearing the weight of the hardships of the journey from which I need to step forth through and in from the beginning to the end is worth it. And I know that, man, there have been times when so concentrated on where I wanted to go and get to better that I forget to enjoy now. And that's just something I've come to recently is I was doing that, right? And like Sharice is one of my dear friends, and she I think she errs on the side of caring a lot about people. So she'll indicate this about people. You should be compassionate. You should enjoy this, and this. And if you're really driven, you can forget to do that. And then when I think about it, it's like, well, what's going to happen when I get to where God's leading me to go anyway? I've thought about this a lot for the past 2 weeks. It's like, what's really going to change in my life? Like, I look at my span of time in a day. I'm like, what's actually going to change? Like, I know it'll be beyond my understanding. I can't really perceive how it's actually going to feel. But what's actually going to change? Am I really going to be, I'm going to be the same dude, you know? Expectedly, I'd probably just have more influence, more responsibility, more financial influence, I suppose, spiritual influence, I guess. And but what's really going to change? Maybe I get so obsessed with coming to a better place that I miss out on all the better things happening right now. And that's so easy to do for me. And so I'm going through a period right now where I'm like going through my schedule and just ripping things out. And some of the things are like kind of scary to rip out because I'm like, I don't know, dude. Those are times and things that are for a good purpose and they help a lot of people. But just because they're good and great now doesn't mean it's as good and great as what God wants me to do. So, yeah, that's just something I've came to recently. And that's something that'll happen, I think, to a lot of people that are really driven, striving towards their purpose. He makes all things new, including who we are today versus our future self. He makes all things new. I don't know. I don't agree that he creates an entire new template. I don't agree with that. I think that unless our understandings are wrong, I think Shrees here said, you won't be the same. He makes all things new, including who we are today versus our future self. I don't think God wastes anything. And I think the conglomeration of who you are from the beginning of birth to death, it is all a compilation. And I don't like thinking about it as I will be a completely new person because for me, that makes me have the perspective of, well, then why was I doing that? When, look at Paul, for instance. He was a Pharisee. He led Christians to die. You are becoming someone new. Okay, that makes sense then. That makes sense. Yeah, that's true. Because we have to die. That's true. You have to die to your current self, or at least the tethers you have to your current self and understanding in order for new to come about. And that's also the same thing about learning. You have to sacrifice your current truth to offer it up as a sacrifice to a new understanding. And yeah, new mindset, new faith, new ways of thinking. It's new. That's true. I think I wonder if, I don't know. You can, yeah, just like going in your journey to better, you can forget things that are good for you now or forget to feel them because you're so obsessed with feeling that new feeling you're chasing or that new destination. I think you can do that with your knowledge base too. You can disregard things you currently know for the quest of new, right? And you can forget to utilize things you currently know. I do it often. Yeah. So I say all that to say we do here have a purpose, all of us, and it doesn't feel good all the time. And attaching yourself, your purpose, and your understanding of that to something greater than yourself and your understanding is an advantage for not only you, but for everyone else in the world that is affected by you. It is greater to think of yourself as, just like in the Bible says, those that are last come first, and those that are first come last. There's something about that in humbling yourself and doing things for a greater purpose and for others. The act of sacrifice. And you'll find your purpose. If you're confused now, there's so many people confused. Even I'm confused. And I feel like I know my purpose. At least some of it. Like I know like a little shard of it, right? And yeah. It's just, it takes time and hardships and trials and failings. You learn way more failing than you do succeeding. When you succeed, it's just like a validation that your understanding was actually right. When you fail, it's just saying, what do I need to change? You know? So yeah. I'm going to end there. Ricky Bobby says, if you're not first, you're last. Or Ricky Bobby was an idiot. I mean, that's just how it is. So I'm going to end there. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I don't know what I got a bunch of stuff I got to get done for work. I still am trying to figure out how to properly put this live in my schedule. Starting from 8 o'clock is okay, but I usually have a meeting that starts at 9. I don't know if I need to reduce the times of going live from every day to every other day. I don't know why, but I don't really like that idea. I don't like the idea of reducing it to every other day. I don't like that. I really don't. I feel like it's not only good. I just think it'd be cool to have a community to just go live every day at the beginning of your day, right? I just maybe need to be better at hard setting an end time. But I also like it keeping it open and organic. I'd rather have too much time than too little. And as I was going to say, I have a meeting at 9 that happens every single day. And I could ask my team or the person that's in charge of the meeting and just tell them I'm not going to come anymore. And honestly, I think they would just give me a pass. They don't care. They wouldn't care. They'd just be like, okay, fine. Because they already know. They know me by now that like I'm so disciplined that it's not really going to matter. And yeah, I'm still trying to figure out where to properly place this. And God will show me, you know. He will show me. I've been praying about it. I might I've thought about putting it in the PM. I don't know, we'll see. I just kind of like having it in the format where I just come here and talk to people. Yep. So yeah, we'll figure it out. Right now, I'm still going to have it start around 8:30 or 8. I need to just make it so it starts at 8, I think. So yeah, I'll be around. What is it? Friday? Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow at 8. I love you and have a great rest of your day. God bless. And Lord, I would just pray that you would give us the strength, power, and joy to live in the complete fullness of who we are, who we're called, created, and destined to be in every moment of this day. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you for what you're going to do today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. I'm getting out of here. God's so good. Go conquer your day. I love you. Peace.